What's up guys, Mike here, the Detroit Bork, and today we're checking out both sizes of the new iPad Pros for 2018. Now this is by far the biggest redesign the iPad has received in its history. So very similar to the iPhone X that debuted a year ago, we lose the home button and Touch ID, but gain an edge-to-edge display along with Face ID. Once again, we have two sizes to pick from, this time 11-inch and 12.9-inch. Both are available in silver or space gray, and they start at $799 or $999 with 4 capacity options to pick from. So getting to the unboxing of the iPads, we're going to do these side by side. Now I have two versions. I have the cheapest and most expensive. So at $799, I have the 11-inch model with Wi-Fi only, and then I have the 1TB $1899 version with cellular. Personally, I don't need 1 terabyte of storage, but there's one reason I really wanted it, and that's because it's the only version that gets 6 gigs of RAM. All other versions of the iPad Pro only get 4. So the 11-inch version I have is silver, and the 12.9-inch is space gray. Space gray is actually quite a bit darker on this iPad than it has been in previous versions. But the thing that's hard to communicate here is how amazing these feel when you handle them. They're extremely thin and lightweight. So basically, it doesn't feel like you're handling a device that's as powerful and capable as something like these iPad Pros. So first up, we have the paperwork, which is pretty much the same between the 11-inch and 12-inch models. So of course, we get a quick start guide, warranty, and regulatory information, and a set of white Apple stickers. As always, the guide highlights the major features and some of the new ways you interact with this home button-free iPad. Now, if you get an iPad with LTE, you also find a SIM ejection tool, so you can swap out the SIM if you need to. In the bottom of the box, we'll find a bunch of new accessories we haven't seen before with an iPad, such as an all-new 18-watt travel charger. And something you'll notice right away about this travel charger is that it's USB-C, and that's because this iPad Pro uses USB-C instead of Lightning. So of course, they've also included a compatible USB-C charging cable. During setup, the iPad Pro will prompt you to set up Face ID for the first time. Now, just like on the iPhone, this uses 3D mapping sensors to scan your face. So all you have to do is sort of rotate your face around. You have to do this twice, but once you do it, you're good to go. Now, Face ID on the iPad Pro works a little differently, and that's because it works in any orientation. So that means it works in either portrait or landscape orientation. You can hold it upside down. It doesn't matter where the camera is, as long as it can see your face. Now, there's a few quirks to know about. So for example, when you handle this in landscape orientation, you will most likely be blocking the camera. So the iPad will prompt you to remove the obstruction so it can scan your face. And if the camera is positioned at the bottom of the iPad, you'll be instructed to look down. Either way, it works extremely quickly, to the point you don't even know it's working unless you're blocking it. Personally, I think this is a much more elegant solution than the home button and Touch ID, especially on iPad, just because the orientation of those things was always changing. Now, this true depth camera system is very similar to the system on the iPhone XS and the XR. So that uses an infrared flood illuminator and a dot matrix projector to map your face in real time. Now, normally this light isn't visible, but my camera picks it up, so you'll see it throughout this video. But this allows you to very quickly unlock the iPad Pro, use Apple Pay, authenticate passcodes, but more importantly, use it for Animojis and Memojis for the first time on the iPad. Although 11-inch and 12.9-inch don't sound terribly different in size, side by side you can see just how much bigger 12.9-inch is compared to the 11-inch. Now, the 11-inch is basically the third generation of the smaller iPad Pro. It's just that we've had 3 different sizes. So we had a 9.7-inch, 10.5-inch, and now the 11-inch. Now, the 11-inch is slightly shorter, but for the most part is the same overall footprint of the 10.5-inch. It's just that the display has been pushed toward the edges. But what's kind of interesting here is that the bezels along the side are thicker on the 11-inch than they are on the 10.5-inch. But overall, we still have a lot more screen real estate. But the change for the third generation 12.9-inch iPad Pro is much more dramatic. So although we retain that huge screen size, it's much more compact overall. So the bezels all around are much smaller. So I think that makes the 12.9-inch a much more accessible iPad than the previous one, just because it was so big and unwieldy to use and carry around. This one is much more compact, which I think will make this a lot more popular than it was. Now, similar to the iPhone XR, the iPad Pro also gets something called a liquid retina display. Basically, that means the corners of the display are rounded off using a variety of technologies and software techniques. So they're using anti-aliasing and some pixel masking technology to make sure that the corners are rounded off. Now, the thing I noticed right away is that unlike the iPhones or the Apple Watches, the radii of the display corners don't really match the more rounded design of the casing. So the corners of the display still look sharper than the corners of the hardware, but I think that's that's appropriate for an iPad because at this size, the more you round off the corners, the more screen real estate you lose. Now, besides the size and design changes, the display specs are pretty much carried over from the last generation. So we still have a pixel density of 264 and we're still using an LCD IPS display with a maximum brightness of 600 nits, which is consistent with other Apple devices. And we still get support for the wide color spectrum of the DCI-P3 spec, so these are very vibrant and colorful displays. And of course, we get True Tone technology, which matches the white balance to the ambient light of the room. But the most impressive display technology is ProMotion. So these displays have a refresh rate of 120 Hz. That's twice the refresh rate of any other Apple display. And this is still the only Apple device that gets it. ProMotion is adaptive, so this only applies where it's appropriate, such as the interface, browsing the web, and that sort of thing, but you won't see it used when you're watching video. Resolution for the 12.9-inch is carried over at 2732 by 2048, but the 11-inch has a larger resolution of 2388 by 1668. All of these resolutions are basically designed to achieve the same Retina pixel density of 264. Although it would be nice if iPad moved to OLED like the iPhones, you wouldn't get that refresh rate of ProMotion with OLED just yet. But regardless, these are beautiful displays with bright, vivid colors, great contrast levels, and they have a color calibration that's appropriate for professional users. Although the bezels are much smaller than they were, there's still enough room to grip the edge of the iPad without touching the screen. But even if you do, there is a certain amount of edge rejection, so it knows whether you're intentionally pressing the screen or just gripping it at the sides. Personally, I'm a big fan of the redesign. I like this squarer edge, especially when it's this thin. But that square edge does have a few functional benefits, specifically related to the new Apple Pencil 2, because there is a flat surface for inductive charging for the new Pencil. It's a really clever and sleek design that's extremely sturdy, so the Apple Pencil doesn't easily come off. This also allows you to pair quickly to the Apple Pencil, so as soon as you connect it, you're ready to go. Something less functional but just as impressive is that you can stand the iPad Pros on their side. So despite their extreme thinness and their size, they're so well balanced that they can stand on their own even in portrait mode. Speaking of balance, you can actually hold the iPad Pro with one finger if you place it at the center of the Apple logo. Once again, in the same corner, we have the power button and the volume controls. The power button is a bit bigger than we've seen before, and that's because it also serves the function of holding for Siri. So because we no longer have the home button, you can hold the power button to activate Siri. They've also completely redesigned the antenna stripes along the back, so every version of the iPad has an eyebrow toward the top just above the camera that runs across the top length. So basically, this is needed for radio transparency, whether you have the Wi-Fi or the cellular model. Now, if you do get the cellular model, there are even more antenna stripes. So you'll see there's an eyebrow on the top and the bottom, and they sort of connect through the sides. In terms of microphones, I've counted about 5. So you'll find one right next to the camera, you'll find 2 at the top edge, one right next to the FaceTime camera on the front, and another one along the edge, and all of that brings us stereo sound for the first time for video recording. Now, if your version of the iPad Pro has cellular, you'll find a SIM tray. So again, this is a nano SIM tray, but we also have an electronic SIM. So just like the newest iPhones, the iPad also has an eSIM, which allows you to sign up for your service without swapping SIM trays. As always, iPad Pro gets a set of quad speakers, and once again, they've been re-engineered. So the grill outlets are quite a bit bigger than they were on the previous iPads, but they've also separated the drivers inside the hardware. So we now have separate tweeters and woofers for each speaker. So that delivers by far the best audio I've ever heard on a device this small. Not only are they louder and sharper than they were before, but the stereo soundscape is much wider. So it's by far the most immersive stereo sound you're going to get on any mobile device. It's pretty impressive and a great way of enjoying movies or gaming. Another neat trick with the iPad Pro speakers that we forget about is that they're adaptive to orientation. So they'll actually recalibrate the speakers depending on how you're handling them, and the transition is so imperceptible that you don't really notice it's happening. The biggest iPad Pro definitely delivers the best sound because we have larger speakers and a bigger resonance chamber, but they both sound fantastic. Now, iPad Pro did lose the 3.5mm headphone jack, but did gain USB-C replacing Lightning. So that opens up a wide variety of possibilities in terms of connecting accessories. Perhaps the most interesting and most talked about new feature of USB-C is that you can charge your iPhone from your iPad. So this outputs up to 7.5 watts of power. So basically, you can recharge any small device, any smartphone or that sort of thing, but you can also recharge your Apple Watch thanks to a new USB-C Apple Watch charging cable. We can also connect external storage, but you're limited in terms of what you can natively import. So iOS really only recognizes photo files or video files for import. iOS 12 still doesn't give us direct access to the drive, even within the Files app. So the best you can do is import using the Photos app or third-party apps that support external storage. Amazingly, you can also output to a 5K external display over a single USB-C cable. So essentially, this gives you screen mirroring and screen extension depending on how the app uses it. So most of the time, you're just going to mirror your iPad's display on the monitor, but photo and video apps can go full screen on the external display while using the iPad as the controller. And if your monitor supports it, you can even output HDR content. Returning once again is the Smart Connector, this time on the back side of the iPad Pro. Previously, these used to be located along the side. So again, these supply power and direct connectivity for keyboard accessories. Now the keyboard accessory is held onto the back of the iPad instead of along the side, so it provides full protection. Now there's actually 105 magnets positioned throughout the chassis of the iPad Pro to hold on to the various accessories. Just like the original Apple Pencil, the Pencil 2 also detects angle and pressure, so this allows you to use virtual tools kind of like you would in the real world. Pencil 2 also picks up a matte finish, which is easier to grip, but the other new feature here is a curved touch sensor, so you can double tap the Apple Pencil to switch between tools. Right now in the Notes app, it switches between the tool you were using and the eraser tool, but this is also customizable under settings. When it comes to performance, the iPad Pros get a huge boost from the new A12X Bionic CPU. This is the same 7nm architecture from the iPhone XS and XR, but it's been beefed up quite a bit for the iPad Pro. So in addition to the neural engine, we get a 7-core CPU, that's up from the 6-core CPU on the iPhone XS, but the iPad Pro doubles the GPU cores from 4 to 8. So when it comes to the Geekbench scores, we're seeing numbers we've never seen on an iPad. In fact, we're getting numbers very similar to a MacBook Pro running a Core i7. And if we compare this to the previous iPad Pros, the single-core score is up by 30%, but the multi-core score is more than double the performance. As I mentioned earlier, if you get 1 terabyte of storage, you get 6 gigs of RAM, while the others get 4 gigs. Now this extra RAM doesn't improve performance, it's actually used to manage the extra storage. Battery life is identical for both sizes, so the bigger iPad doesn't have more battery life than the smaller iPad, so you should get about 10 hours of web surfing over Wi-Fi. In terms of what you can do with all of this processing power, it really depends on the app you're using. Obviously, apps like video editing, photo editing, or gaming will take best advantage of all of this. The only unfortunate side effect of these smaller bezels is that the camera on the back sticks out quite a bit. Now, because the iPad is so large, it's not going to rock around when you place it flat on the surface, but that bump is especially noticeable on a device this thin. This camera has similar specs to the one on the iPhone XS and XR and many of the same features, but it's been redesigned for a thinner form factor. So again, it's 12 megapixels with an f1.8 aperture, but instead of a 6-element lens, we have a 5-element lens. And we also lose optical image stabilization. But we still have electronic image stabilization, and because the iPad is so much more stable to hold, I don't think it's such an issue to have OIS on an iPad. And generally speaking, especially with 4K video recording at 60 frames per second, it's still extremely well stabilized even without it. But this camera has many of the same features of the iPhone XR, including Smart HDR, which does a great job bringing up color in low light shots and evening out the highlights and lowlights of a scene. Just like on the iPhone XS and the XR, we have a 7 megapixel front-facing camera with an f2.2 aperture. We also get 1080p video recording up to 60 frames per second for the first time on an iPad, and unfortunately this is the only camera on the iPad that's capable of portrait modes. So this will allow you to change the depth of field of your photograph after you've taken it or while you're taking it. And just like the iPhones, it's a little more sophisticated than just blurring the background. It actually changes the bokeh effects of the background to reflect the optics of a shallower depth of field. Now checking out the interface, we have tap to wake just like on the iPhone 10 and newer. Right now it's trying to scan for my face, but my thumb is in the way. So if I move it here, tap the screen again, it should be able to scan for my face and unlock and take me to the home screen. So we now swipe up from the bottom to get to home, whatever the bottom is and whatever orientation you're using it. So for example, if I go to Safari here, I can swipe up anywhere on the bottom to get back home. You can also swipe across the bottom of the screen to switch between your apps. I really like this. This is just like iPhone 10. We can also swipe up to get to the dock, swipe up further and hold to get to your recent apps. apps. So you can swipe through your recent apps and swipe up to dismiss them. From the home screen, you can swipe right to get to your widgets, and you can edit your widgets down here. So for example, if you want to add the battery app to check the battery status of your Apple Pencil, you can do that. Click done here, and you'll see that right here. From the upper right corner, you can swipe down to get to your control center. So we can long press to get to additional controls such as turning on or turning off, true tone, or night shift. We do get split screen mode. Now this isn't new for iPad Pro, but you can open up two apps side by side. So if I bring up the dock here and drag the Mail app over to the side, I can dock it to the right side. So I can interact with two apps side by side. I can resize the window, or if I want to undock the app, just swipe down. So now it's floating over top and I can move it side to side, and if I want to dock it on the left side, just swipe down. In terms of choosing size, both of them have the exact same specs and battery life, so there should be no difference here besides price and personal preference. Now, I personally prefer the 12.9 inch if you intend to use this primarily as a laptop with the keyboard accessory, while the 11 inch is just the right size if you intend to use this primarily as a tablet without the keyboard accessory. However, I think both the 11 inch and 12.9 inch have very comfortable and usable keyboards, so I don't really think there's a huge difference there either. But as I mentioned earlier, I think that 12.9 inch size is much more appealing than it used to be, and certainly the one I'll be using. So in the end, the iPad Pro is getting much closer to the Mac replacement it's always wanted to be. But honestly, there's a pretty big difference between iOS and Mac OS, although there's still quite a bit of synergy there. But iPad offers quite a bit that the Mac doesn't, such as a touchscreen, support for the stylus, LTE connectivity, and of course that beautiful ProMotion display. And what's amazing is you get the performance of a much bulkier, heavier, fan-breathing MacBook Pro in this lightweight, thin, and silent iPad Pro. iPad Pro certainly can get very expensive, so if you get the Max configuration with all of its accessories, you can spend up to $2,400. But you can also get the exact same performance in the cheapest 11-inch model for $799. So compared to a Mac, the iPad Pro has quite a bit of pricing flexibility without sacrificing performance. But for me, until iOS picks up some of the flexibility of Mac OS, a full backlit keyboard, and a trackpad interface, I'm still not going to be able to give up my Mac for the iPad. These are going to remain very distinct devices with some overlap, but each device has unique capabilities that the other can't replace. But it's hard to deny that even if I don't get my money's worth out of the iPad Pro, it's something I love using, and it's a beautiful piece of hardware. Alrighty guys, hope you enjoyed this look at the iPad Pros. If you did, please let me know with a like, and I'll see you again in my next video.